Every action is preceded by a thought. If success is measured by scoring 100 and a top player averages 50, that player is failing half the time they go out to bat. But even if you are an England player, if you don't feel nerves, you're not human.
Nervous 90s. Why is that happening to a player that's played so beautifully up to that point?
Well, it happens because they're going away from the process and they're thinking about the outcome. Look, goal setting is crucial for development. Without clear goals, players can drift and improvement is random.
Obviously, there's a huge depth that one can go into this whole subject. But if someone said to you, Nathan, just give me your best piece of advice, what would it be? So, Cricket Life Stories with me, Neel Khagram. Today we're joined by Nathan Wood. Nathan, how's it all going? Your side?
Yeah, it's going okay, Neil. Pretty fit considering my back history for the last few months, but yeah, pretty good today.
No, I appreciate you coming on the channel. So, Nathan, you're a former professional cricketer for Lancashire, former coach development lead for England cricket as well, and now the founder of Cricket Mind. We'll talk a lot about Cricket Mind at the back end of this chat and we'll give links, etc. But in this one, we're just going to talk about psychology, mindset for a cricketer, a young and up and coming cricketer, or even something that can help the pros in the game. So, a high level question for you to start with. How important is mindset in the makeup of a cricketer as a whole?
Well, I think it's everything, Neil, actually, because every action is preceded by a thought, and a feeling. And the power of the mind to affect what you do physically is vastly underestimated. Um, there's so many, you'll know so many players, as do I, who have been outstanding in practice. They've got all the skills, they practice hard. They look like world beaters in the nets, and then they get to games and they look like Donald Duck. And it's not because their skills aren't, strong enough, good enough. A lot of the time it's because they can't handle the pressures of the mind. Um, so I think it's absolutely vital, and it's a reason why, professional, international sports players and teams, have used support in this area for decades now, and it affects not just, those who play in those domains. It affects everybody. Everybody. I can't think of a single cricketer, regardless of what level they play, whether it's Lancashire first team or, a club third team that doesn't want to do well. And they get frustrated that they can't transfer their skills from practice into matches. So this does apply to everybody. It's just that, there's not that much resource for people below pro level. So, we're hoping to, fill that gap really.
You think it's still almost a taboo subject, mindset, people that are actually got this feeling that they can't take pressure off themselves, nerves, etc. It's well documented about perfecting the cover drive, or you can just get wrist position correct for a bowler, but not much is still perhaps talked about mindset.
Well, it's certainly talked a lot about in those professional circles, because they realise the importance of it. I think that you're right, in the recreational game, there is a lot of focus, and rightly so, on technical and physical skills, because, if those aren't in place, then regardless of how strong your mindset is, you might not get, you probably won't get the success that you want. So, those are fundamental. But there are too many players, in the past and now and in the future who have got those skills, but they just cannot get the best out of them. And it's because of the way that they approach, the game and life, from in terms of their mindset. So I think that not enough attention is paid to it, below pro level. But I think it's changing. There's a bit more awareness coming out. People are talking about it more. I think in cricket it will follow other sports like tennis, where the top players will have their own, you know, mindset coaches with them, high performance coaches, sports psychologists, like they do physios and technical coaches. So the more that that happens at the top level and people see it, the more that it will filter down, into the below levels.
In your opinion, is cricket just a game of failure, and that's the hardest part for a player to accept?
Well, yeah, cricket is absolutely a game of failure. I mean, it's a game where even the greatest players have failed a lot. For if you take, if success as a batter is measured by scoring 100, and a top player averages 50, that player is failing half the time they go out to bat. So, yeah, I mean, conversely, a bowler, they can bowl a brilliant spell and yet end up wicketless. There's a lot of failure in cricket, and this makes the mental side of the game even more important. But I think the crucial thing is to deal with failure positively and to learn to move on as quickly as you can, which is easier said than done. Um, I don't subscribe to the view that a lot of coaches in recent times have said they want to take, you know, the fear of failure away. That is impossible. If you care about what you do, it will affect you because you're human. But you can come up with strategies to manage that and, get it to work in your favor. Um,
I know it's bespoke for each player, but are there any perhaps strategies you could share with the audience that might help, say, a young player?
yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. There's no one size fits all, but things that everyone's heard of, reframing failure, seeing it as a learning opportunity rather than a negative effect. Reflection, after a game, instead of dwelling on mistakes, aim to identify a couple of positives, perhaps even a couple of areas for improvement. Um, Having a short memory but a strong mind. You know, what do I mean by that? Learning to let go of the past, being able to focus on the next moment. Because, cricket is it's a strange game. It's a game of distinct and separate moments. It's not a free-flowing sport. The ball is bowled and hit, the action stops. Another ball is bowled and hit, the action stops, and so on. And it's this space in between these movements which actually gives a lot of players time to get into their own heads. So it's vital that they have the ability to reset themselves, to concentrate, the focus on the delivery that's coming up. Strategies, speaking to yourself in the third person. It sounds ridiculous, but having a conversation in your own mind where you coach yourself. We're much better at giving advice to others than we are at taking advice. And so by referring to yourself by your name or using he, she, they, it actually makes it much easier for us to solve our own problems. They call it psychological distance, and it helps us to detach ourselves from our emotions and see things much more objectively. So there's loads of little things. Listening to music. Music can change your mood like that. Most people, when they listen to music, it makes them feel better. Yeah, when you speak to people about, what did you do when you were feeling anxious or not confident, they never mention putting music on. And yet it can change your mental state, in a flash. So, if you feel like you need to get into a calmer frame of mind, put some calming music on. If you feel like you want to, become a bit of a warrior, put something upbeat. on. Get yourself into that frame of mind. We try to give people practical, simple kind of tips to help shift them, into the state that into the performance state that they want to get into.
It's almost then seeing your game as a process as opposed to being completely results driven, getting as a batter, as you say, if the threshold is 100, that pressure putting on yourself, getting 100 every game or a fifer for a bowler. Is it just almost seeing it all as a process?
Well, look, if you did both of those things, you would be the greatest player on earth. Even the greatest batsman, Don Bradman, averaged 99.94. He didn't manage to do that. Um, yeah, I'd say that most players get caught up in outcomes, scoring runs, taking wickets, winning the game. The problem is that you can't control the result. You could get run out by your own batting partner. Nothing you could do. You could be on the wrong end of a bad decision. Nothing you could do. You could get an unplayable ball because it hits a divot and it shoots low. Nothing you could do. So there's so many factors outside of your control when you play cricket. But what you can control is your process, how you train, how you prepare, how you think, how you behave. And as the old adage goes, look after the process and the outcome will take care of itself. So, we encourage the players that we work with to focus on executing their skills rather than obsessing over stats and outcomes.
What about nerves? If someone comes to you and says before a day's play, super nervous, if a young player, for example, just before they're about to walk out to bat, they just can't control that feeling inside their stomach. Any tips you can give them, perhaps?
Well, first of all, they need to understand that that is completely normal and everybody feels them. So even if you are an England player, if you don't feel nerves, you're not human. And they may give the impression that they are, you know, nerve free. Actually, they'll all have nerves. It's just about how you manage those nerves and get them working for you. But I think the first thing to do is help that person recognize what you're feeling is absolutely normal and natural. Um, Common strategies, breathing techniques. So it sounds so simple, but slowing your breath down, big inhalations, that will really calm your central nervous system. It will help you to get some perspective. It will slow everything down and it will calm your nerves. A bit of visualization. Imagine you're playing a shot successfully. You're driving a fast bowler for four. Um, you're bowling the perfect ball. Um, in practice, face those nerves head on. Put yourself in difficult situations that provoke nerves, fear. Practicing in nerve-inducing situations that can really help build confidence. Um, Somehow it's about recognizing that you're nervous, but shifting your focus to what you need to do. And that is often taking yourself from not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, actually being in that present moment. Um, I heard a little good tip a few weeks ago, actually. Kind of just take a moment and rub your fingertips together and really feel the wrinkles in your fingertips and put all your focus on that. And what happens is that your mind goes away from thinking, what happens if I get a first bowler? What happens if a bowler, wide the first ball, to thinking about something else, about shifting your focus away from that. And once you've broken that cycle of what if, you can then go back to what do I need to do? What is my intention? And then you're into it. So everybody feels these, Neil. It's a human condition, but you can deal with them and you can make them, very effective, an effective strategy for getting better.
What about for the player that's in the game, they're already settled, say a batter in their 90s, playing beautifully, but then all of a sudden they're 10 short, 5 short away from the magic three figures, and they start, and commentators say it all the time, nervous 90s. Why is that happening to a player that's played so beautifully up to that point?
Well, it happens because they're going away from the process and they're thinking about the outcome. They're thinking about, well, I've never scored 100 before. Or, this could be my record-breaking 100th test century. And, I'll be immortal. But what happens if I don't get there? They suddenly start thinking about the future as opposed to what got them to the 90. And what got them to the 90 was thinking about the ball. So it's about, their focus. And, a lot of this is about focus. I think focus is probably, along with confidence, it's probably the most important mental skill to be able to control. To be able to pull your focus into the moments when it counts, like that, where suddenly you start dreaming about another 10 runs and I'm there. It takes you away from actually what you need to do. And what do you need to do? You need to watch the ball, you need to react to it, and then you need to execute. So that is about focus, I would say.
What about the player that is boisterous, almost has that aura of overconfidence? Can that be a danger as well?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I think confidence is crucial, if you want sustained success. Um, and actually, I think it's a something we can just talk about briefly. When I headed up coach development for England cricket, I would often say to coaches on the level 4 program that if there's one thing that you can give a player or help a player with, make sure they're building the self-confidence. So I'd rather have somebody who's overconfident than lacking in confidence. However, if you are overconfident, it can become a problem if it's sustained. It can lead to laziness, it can lead to poor preparation, underestimating your opponents. It can take, or it can make players take unnecessary risks. It can even lead them to ignoring a technical issue because they just assume that their natural ability will carry them through. So overconfidence, yeah, it can become a problem. And I guess in my opinion, the best players, they are confident in their own ability, but they always respect the game, by staying humble. What do I mean by humble? They're always looking to improve. They prepare thoroughly, regardless of what success they've had. They're open to feedback because they know that learning never stops. Jimmy Anderson, learning at, last stages of his career, incredible. Our best bowler ever, still learning, wanting to learn new tricks. The best players, they keep their hunger for success like Jimmy, but they don't feel entitled to it. Um, so I guess in summary, overconfidence can be a problem, but the best players balance a strong belief with humility and a growth mindset.
What about external noise from the outside? Maybe for a young player, friends or even parents sometimes putting that external pressure on. For a player at the top of the game, commentators, crowd, etc., getting on one's back. Any advice and tips and processes that you might have which you can which a player can implement experiencing those things?
So regardless of the standard, all cricketers face opinions, from everyone and everywhere, whether that's coaches, teammates, parents, social media, supporters, the dinner lady, whoever. Um, and if they listened to everyone and everything, they'd quickly lose their confidence, they'd lose their clarity of thought, they'd end up in a pickle. And unfortunately, this does happen a lot. It happens to a lot of players. So I guess my best advice is twofold. firstly focus on what works for you rather than trying to please everyone. If you listen to everyone, it'll benefit no one, particularly yourself. Players who change their technique every time that they listen to someone else or they watch someone else play, they get in a muddle quickly. And secondly, try and filter out that noise as best you can by, only taking advice from trusted sources. And that is easier said than done. Particularly if the person giving you advice is a strong character or has a high profile. But, for me, the players who go on to do well are the ones who heed advice from a chosen few. Um, Players have a lot of access to a lot of coaching these days. They have access to a lot of opinion. Um, be wise as to who you listen to.
And on the subject of goal setting, you hear again commentators at the top of the game, those batters who are deemed the best in the world, the line that gets chucked around a lot is they're really hungry for runs. Does that actually mean that that is their goal, or what would you say in terms of that subject of goal setting and the importance of it? And does that resonate? Because that almost seems as if the outcomes attached to their process, etc.
Look, goal setting is crucial for development. Without clear goals, players can drift and improvement is random. Without a plan, players are effectively just hoping that they'll get better. Um, so goals are important. They help players to stay focused, motivated. They provide clarity so that players know what to concentrate on in training and matches. They help players measure their progress rather than feeling stuck or being directionless. They help reduce anxiety because they help them to focus their minds on like small, manageable wins rather than big, overwhelming expectations. Goal setting, it creates a growth mindset where players begin to see challenges as setbacks. Oh, sorry, they begin to see challenges and setbacks as stepping stones rather than failure. So, they're really important. They make them accountable, their growth and development. Um, in terms of outcome goals, they tend to be a bit more long term. I want to play professional cricket within 3 years. I want to average 50 in club cricket this season. I mean, I think outcome goals they help you to dream, and dreaming is really important. That's why you play, isn't it? It helps with your passion. It fuels your passion. The danger is that if that's the only goals that you've got, you could get into a bit of bother. I think that outcome goals like that, they need to be supported by process goals. Um, I'll give you an example. So, very long time ago now, Neil, because I'm very old, but at the beginning of a season for Lancashire, I said to myself, I want to score 1,000 runs. I want to score 1,000 runs. I've been on the staff for a few years now. Never scored 1,000 runs in a season. I got to 1,000 runs by the end of July, and something happened to me. I hit the target and I'd achieved my outcome. And I ended up scoring about 100 runs for the rest of the season. Conversely, a season or two after that, I set myself an even bigger goal and I was miles away from it. And because I wasn't going to hit it, I just gave up. So outcome goals, they have a use. They have to be realistic. They have a use, but I would say process goals are so much more effective. Process goals focus on your daily habits, what you do in training. These are the most important type of goal. They focus you on controllable actions and behaviors that actually that's what leads you to success.
Then if you had, say, 5 minutes only with a player, obviously there's a huge depth that one can go into this whole subject. But if someone said to you, Nathan, just give me your best piece of advice, what would it be?
What on anything?
on this subject of mindset and psychology.
Retain your love of the game. You know, there are so many players at so many levels who get into a situation where they stop actually enjoying the game because they start thinking about what if, what if I don't do well? What if I don't get in a team? What if I'm in the team and I lose my place? What about if, you know, lots of those kind of scenarios that actually at some point people start, well, they stop enjoying the game. And that's the reason why they played in the first place. You know, that's the reason why they began playing because they loved the feeling of hitting the ball on the bat. They loved bowling and seeing the wickets tumble, you know, throwing themselves around in the field, being social, you know, having teammates around you, being part of something greater than you. And then something happens to a lot of players along the way. They stop enjoying it. And once you stop enjoying it, you become tense. You start thinking about outcomes. You go into self-preservation. And actually, a lot of our job is connecting, reconnecting people to why they started, because I love it. You know, look at the players who go on to have really long careers at the top. A lot of the time they say, I don't want to give up. I love it. I love this more than anything. They find a way of enjoying this great game because it's a great game. But it can also be a terrible game if you focus in the wrong areas and you put a lot of pressure on yourself to reach an outcome, you know, focus on the process, retain your love of the game. You know, you won't go too far wrong with that approach, I think.
And for those that perhaps want to go deeper with you, we mentioned at the top, founder of Cricket Mind. Do you want to talk us a bit about your business? And we'll obviously put the links in the description of this video. But yeah, do you want to talk us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I left the ECB, England Cricket, in September, and I took a bit of time out actually just to kind of think about what I wanted to do. And this thing kept coming back in my mind about helping players, not on the technical skills, because there's so much advice on that. You know, not on the physical skills, there's so much advice on physical skills, gyms, you know, training advice on the internet, but there's not that much rock solid advice on how to handle your emotions and your mind and how to practice effectively, you know. And so I just kind of coupled with my own experiences as a player, actually, you know, feeling that I didn't fulfill my potential because, you know, I perhaps let my mind get the better of myself. It's probably one of the reasons why I went into coaching. I wanted to help other people become, you know, better players than I and get them to fulfill their potential. So I saw there's a very strong link from my past. I saw a bit of a gap in the market. But one of the things that I learned from working at ECB was, you know, working for a national governing body, you're in charge of a lot of people. You can affect a lot of people. And yet, before I worked at ECB, I had some businesses myself, local businesses, but you can only affect a few. And so I kind of married those two things and I came up with the idea of Cricket Mind Online, which basically provides advice in this area and mentoring and consultation online, um, face to face, but online, so that we can, you know, reach people in Aberdeen to, I don't know, Bath to Birmingham and, you know, outside of the UK. So all the sessions are online. We work with young players, older players, or sorry, more experienced players. We work with amateurs, professionals. If you play cricket and you want to get better and you want to fulfill your potential and transfer those skills, you know, from practice to matches, you know, we want to work with you, we want to help you. And one of the things that we do, Neil, is actually it's not just about working with the player. It's about working with the people who shape the environment around the player, parents, coaches, whoever that might be, because the the culture that these players are in have such an effect on players. There was an older um, performance coach who used to say environment shapes behavior. It does. Create the right environment, you've got half a chance. And so if you work with your parents to create a really fantastic environment at home or in the car, going to the match or driving away from the match, or with coaches during the training environment, actually that coupled with working with the player and working collaboratively with each stakeholder, that really makes the difference. And so, we do reach out and try to create those kind of situations where we're helping the network around the player, not just the player themselves.
That's
So in a nutshell, yeah, online coaching for the betterment of players, and we work directly with players, but also with the people around them to really make it an effective solution.
Yeah, sounds an amazing system. I wish something like this was around when I was a younger player trying to make it, but yeah,
Neil, are you still playing?
I've given up, unfortunately.
Oh, well, maybe if you start up again, get in touch and we'll try and
Yeah, no, will
give
do.
you a
And yeah, as we said, all the links for Cricket Mind in the description of this video. But yeah, Nathan, it was a fantastic chat. Hopefully, a lot of people can get great value from it, and I appreciate your time. So thank you.
I really appreciate it too, Neil, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.